the problem with an identity that isn't rooted into the archetypes is it leaves you incomplete, because the archetypal rooting of the identity is what helps you grapple with the fundamental existential problems of life. And whether you're a carpenter or a plumber or a lawyer, they're still going to, your soul is still going to hunger for some deeper form of identity, and you're not going to get that without having your practical identity encapsulated in something that's greater from a philosophical perspective, and perhaps even deeper than philosophy, which I think the archetypal stories are. They're the structure within which philosophy itself is embedded, and outside of that is a behavioral structure. We've talked about how those evolve. You know, there's behavioral evolution of something approximating a consensual morality, and then stories about that consensual morality emerge, and then inside that the structures of philosophy nest, and all of those things have to be addressed by your identity to some degree, or you're weak. That's the problem. You're beset by doubts, you're beset by anxiety, you're easy to stop, and you don't have much motivation, and none of that's good. It's not good at all, because life presents you with enough real obstacles in the face of genuine suffering, so that unless you're strongly grounded and have a real reason for moving forward, you're going to get stopped, and as soon as you're stopped, you are one miserable thing. Because it's almost like the definition of human misery is to be paralyzed by anxiety and emotional pain, and also have no motive force forward. It's a terrible state, and so you don't want to be in that state, and you have to have an identity that's powerful enough and deeply rooted enough so the most profound doubts that might emerge about your life are met by something of equivalent force. And then that entire world, that's sort of the world that can be comprehended, is nested inside a broader symbolic network, and that seems to be the symbolic network that's made up of the Dragon of Chaos, which is something like our representation of the set of all currently unknowable things. It's a very strange category, right? It's like the category of zero or the category of infinity. And the reason that we formulated that category is because we don't only want to know how to solve a problem. Just like we don't only want to know how to win a game, we want to know how to win the set of all possible games, and we want to solve the set of all possible problems. And so what the human beings have been trying to do for the last forever is trying to figure out how to solve the problem of the set of all problems. And we actually have some ideas. One is play to win the metagame and not the game. That's one solution. Another solution is go out into the unknown voluntarily and gather the information that lies there, because that continually updates you. The other one is to make sacrifices, and that was discovered in an articulate form not very long ago. And the idea of sacrifice is something like, well, you don't just have to solve the problem of how do you survive in the present, which is roughly the problem that animals are always trying to solve. You have to solve the problem of how you survive in the present, given that you also have to survive next week, next month, next year, and among other people. And the answer to that, in part, is the answer of sacrifice, which is to give up something that you desperately want now, that would even be useful right now, so that you accrue more benefit across a broader span of time. A very, very difficult lesson for animals to learn. Animals have a terrible time learning that. But even human beings have a terrible time doing it, because there's some real intelligence in getting while the getting is good. But it's a suboptimal strategy. If you can stabilize the environment and spread out your adaptive capability over wider spans of time, well, so much the better. You get what you need now, and you get what you need later, and you get what you want, and so does your family and other people. It's a much better solution, but that requires precisely sacrifice, because it requires sacrificing the present for the future. And that idea of sacrifice emerged, like all of our ideas, first in action, in acting these things out, and then conceptualizing them with our bodies, like in drama, just the way that Piaget described children first assimilating the structure of their parents' actions by imitating them, rather than by breaking them down into systems of rules, understanding the rules and incorporating the rules. That isn't how we work. We act and figure things out in action, then we imitate our own actions. And to imitate your own actions is to act yourself out, or to act other people out. You can do that without having explicit articulated knowledge, and it's so crucial to understand that, because it explains a great mystery, which is, how can we tell stories that have meanings that are deeper than we know? And the answer to that is, we have information encoded in our behavior that transcends our understanding. Well, how? Well, We're constantly modifying each other, constantly, and the world's constantly modifying us, and there's no reason that while being modified we should also be able to track how it is that we're being modified. We have to figure that out afterwards, and it's extraordinarily difficult to look at a whole culture or even a single individual and to say, well, what is that person or what is that societal structure? It supersedes our conscious capacity for representation, so we're always playing catch-up. That doesn't mean that we don't act out things we think sometimes, you know, that the causal pathway can't go the other way, because it can, but more frequently it's bottom up rather than top down, which is how everything works in the biological world. Animals do and have wisdom, but they don't know what they do, and they can't articulate their wisdom, so it's self-evident that a process like this must have occurred.